readers, and welcome to the Right Kind of Book Talk with your host, Stacey Wright. This is episode 3. I stand with the band. Woo-wee! This has been a conversation and a half online for the past couple of weeks. The fear of books being banned in schools, from being unable to buy them anymore, and of books just disappearing from people's e-readers. But what is a book banning? It's basically a form of censorship. It usually occurs when individuals, government officials, or organizations want to remove books from libraries, schools, bookstores. But before we dive in, let's see what books are out today. So we have The Unaccounted For by Chelsea Bliss, Pickleballers by Ilana Long, Like Cats and Dogs by Lizzie Shane, Puck and Prejudice by Leah Riley, Her Night at the Museum by Bryn Donovan, The Co-op by Taryn DeWitt, Go Cook Yourself by Rebecca Chase, Real by Kennedy Ryan, The Under the Mistletoe Collection by various authors, The Collaborators by Michael Idove, April Storm by Leila Meacham, Burn This Night by Alex Kenner. So any of these books on your radar? I know that a few of them are definitely on mine. I don't know if you're interested, but here are the top 10 series available on Kindle Unlimited this week. The Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, that's Fourth Wing Iron Flame. The Housemaid series by Frida McFadden. Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. The Three Body Problems series by Six in Loop. The Shepherd King series by Rachel Gillick. The Raven Hood series by Kate Stewart. The Silo series by Hugh Howey. The Played Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. Murphy Shepherd series, Charles Martin. Hades Pressfine Saga series, Scarlett St. Clair. Now, Kindle Unlimited is basically a book subscription service for ebooks. I think in the US, you guys even get audiobooks. We don't here in Canada yet. Maybe it's something that will finally appear for us, but it doesn't. I pay like $9.99 a month. That's Canadian. And I get access to tens of thousands of books. I get to download up to 20, and there's no limit on how long I can borrow them for. And honestly, it's a really great way to get access to books at a really affordable price. Okay, let's get to it. How do you feel about the idea of books being banned? I personally don't think any books should be banned. Even the ones I think were so bad I hate them, they don't deserve to be banned. Do I think this is an overreaction to the current times? Yes, I do. I do. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Anything is possible. And I personally can't see the future. But what I do know is how I feel about it and how others feel too. So we're going to go over book bannings, what it means, who tends to do it, and what are the top contenders for becoming banned. When I posed the question of book banning to my book groups, the outrage was intense. Emotions are running high, and people are frightened that the landscape for readers is changing, and it's not for the better. I'm just going to sidebar this part about ebooks. You don't own your ebooks, even when you buy them. Ebook purchasers are merely granted the rights to access the books, not to do anything else with them, such as resell, lend to others, or donate. The rights typically associated with true ownership. You can't do any of those things, so you don't own it. I highly recommend, if you are worried about this happening, to grab a physical copy of the books that could potentially be banned and removed, so you always have access to them. So banned books. Those advocating a ban complain typically that the book in question contains graphic violence, expresses disrespect for parents and family, is sexually explicit, exalts evil, lacks literary merit, is unsuitable for a particular age group, or includes offensive language. So the six basis for attentive book bannings are religious views. Books that express unpopular religious views or opinions, such as satanic or witchcraft themes, they may be banned. Political bias. Books that support or examine extreme political parties or philosophies may also be banned. LGBTQIA plus content. Books that deal with sexual orientation or gay issues may be banned or may also have heavy sexual references. Racism. Books that deal with racism may be banned. Use of illegal substances. Books that deal with the use of illegal substances may be banned. Anti-family content. Books that are considered to be anti-family may also be banned. So what was the first book to get banned? Thomas Morton's New English canon harshly criticized the Puritans and their exploitation of the land and its indigenous populations. So book banning is not new. This has been happening for a long time. So before a book can be banned, it first has to be challenged. A book challenge occurs when someone attempts to remove or restrict a piece of literature based on various objections. The book doesn't become banned until it's been removed from the curriculum or from a library. This means that free access to the book is no longer available in the designated institution or, in more extreme cases, prohibited by law. However, while books are challenged regularly, only about 10% that are challenged are ever actually banned. Personally, that's 10% too many. Now, book banning is a really imprecise catch-all term. And actually, there are 4 levels to book censorship. So when a book is challenged, it will potentially end in one of these 4 levels. Firstly, redaction. When you put a line through something because you don't like that word, or you cover up an image if you don't like that particular image. Relocation. When you remove something from its intended audience and then aim it at a different audience. So a book you feel isn't quite right for a 10-year-old, but maybe is more suited to a 13-year-old will be relocated. Makes sense, right? Restriction. This is when you require permission to read something. So you have to get permission from somebody to now access that book. Removal. What most people think about when you hear book banning, it's saying this book needs to be removed from the collection, from the curriculum, from my site. That is literally the last resort in book banning. The actual physical removal of that book. Something that did come up a lot was not banning, but enforcing age ratings on books. So let's talk a little bit about ratings and what they actually mean, because we all know that they're just basically a guideline at this point. So books are classified into categories, and these categories kind of help parents and other people to know roughly who they should be buying the book for. So ages 4 to 8 are the easy readers. Age 6 to 9 are the first chapter books, usually grade 1 to 3. Age 8 to 12 are the middle grade novels. Age 13 to 18, young adult. Age 18 to 25 is that new category, new adult. And then age 18 up is adult. I think the first 3 categories are pretty self-explanatory, but people get hella confused about young adult. They seem to assume that young adult means clean. Tisk tisk, my friends. That is not what that means at all. So what are the characteristics of a young adult fiction novel? So basically it means that the writing is for readers between the ages of 13 and 18. Young adult authors speak to the experiences of this age group, such as young adult books share certain characteristics like profanity and graphic violence are permissible, reflecting the maturity of the reading group. Romance is allowed, but not eroticism. Protagonists are typically between 15 and 18 years old, reflecting on the age of the reading group. Young adult novels are genuinely between 50,000 and 75,000 words, though fantasy does tend to take more liberties with the length of their books. Young adult fiction is typically focused on how the main character fits in the grown-up world beyond their family and friends, reflecting on events and analysing their meaning to better understand themselves, their journey, and the world they are coming into. Because of the amount of self-reflection, internality, Young adult novels are often told in the first person from the protagonist's point of view. Not always, but most of the time. Now, have you watched or read the book 13 Reasons Why? Did that seem like a young adult book based on your perceptions before you found out what young adult was? Hell no, no one did. These are the books parents are trying to ban in schools. Okay, why? The conversation's uncomfortable. Teens are impressionable and parents feel disconnected. 13 Reasons Why cover topics like suicide, sexual assault, bullying, racism, mental health, addiction, and a ton more. That's what we call trigger warnings. Books come with those now. So if you have trigger warnings in books, why ban them? You know right from the get-go what to expect. Parents don't want to have to deal with the very real and scary topics that plague teens throughout their school careers. So banning them is so much easier than dealing with it. It's not. It's not. You're making a mistake. The reason, there is no reason to ban a book. Your fear isn't a good reason. Now, parents have the right to monitor their children's reading habits, but they don't have the right to tell me or anyone else what their kids can or cannot read. Other than 13 Reasons Why, what other books have parents fought to have banned at their schools? Let's take a look at that next. I was in another group, and for the most part, people were against banning. But there were some pro-banning in certain circumstances. There were the books that came up and the age ranges they wanted it banned for. So, elementary school books. This is just a few of the books that I found online that are being challenged currently. Worm Loves Worm by J.J. Austrian. What's its charged? LGBTQ content. Captain Underpants. The crime has same-sex marriage. Seeing a little bit of a theme here? I am. The Watsons Go to Birmingham. This one's by Christopher Paul Curtis. Okay, what did this one do wrong? Inappropriate language and violence. Roll of Thunder, Hear Me Cry. Mildred D. Taylor. This one is on the chopping block for racial slurs. You see what I did there? I purposefully added a book that you likely agree needs to be banned. How do you feel now? Differently, I bet. So the Lorax is being challenged because it is anti-logging. I really wish I was joking, but I'm not joking. The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein for sexism. Aha. See what I did there? Lawn Boy, said to contain pornography. Now, I haven't read this book. I've never seen it, so I really can't comment if that's true, but apparently there's some very explicit things in there that maybe 5 to 10-year-olds should not be reading about. Something happened in our town, a child's story of a racial injustice. Now, this one's being challenged for anti-police sentiment. Are we seeing something a little different yet? There are dozens more examples, but these are the ones that I chose. Some you likely think shouldn't be banned. I'm guessing the ones with the LGBTQ content, right? But some I'm guessing had you thinking for a moment. Okay, now let's maybe look at the books for older kids. Diary of a Wimpy Kid. This one has sexually explicit, obscene parts to it and anti-family. I've actually never read it. I may have added it to my TBR after doing this research. Beloved by Toni Morrison. Okay, this book has rape in it and it is graphic. Very, very graphic. It was quite horrifying. But the book is well known for that, okay? No one's unawares. Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez. graphic sexual scenes between minors. Ghost Boys supposedly had white kids feeling ashamed of their own skin color. Again, haven't read it, I don't know. Some of the books listed included heavy LGBTQ topics, explicit sex, racism, drugs, mental health, sexual assault, and alcohol use. Uncomfortable topics, right? You can kind of see where this is going. And look, I get it. You want to believe your little Annie is as pure as a nun and she's playing with her unicorns and reading the Bible at bedtime. I hate to burst your bubble, but little Annie goes to school and kids know things. Kids do things and kids say things. So your child is being exposed to all of the things and they probably know more than you do. Banning books with sex isn't going to stop kids having sex. Again, this is all fear-based. Kids at this age are fully aware of their sexuality and you want to remove their rep and books from the library because you're uncomfortable? This says a lot about you. But did you know that Texas has one of the highest rates for challenging books to be banned in the USA? I actually didn't think it would be Texas. I was actually quite surprised. I know they're very down there, but still, I didn't think it would be them. Do you believe that some books should be banned in certain circumstances? Do you believe books that use the N-word should be banned? Why am I asking you this? Well, you were likely completely anti-banning. And then I've hit you with things. And now your moral compass is probably rotating pretty quickly. Do you think books should have age ratings like movies do? Do you think a book with sex in it should be rated 15 plus? And you have to prove your age to buy. Maybe that's something, hey? I am 100% for parents having the right to choose what their kids read. I know I'm a rebel, but books are a really important tool for creating the conversation. I have an older daughter, my eldest daughter, and she wanted to read it. I knew she planned to read it. I've read it. I knew what topics might come up. I told her if there was anything she didn't understand to come to talk to me and be prepared for XYZ. The kind of relationship I have with my daughter means she can come to me for anything, she can tell me anything, and there is no judgment. And she did. She had questions. She had a lot of questions. And we sat and we discussed. She's 19 now and she knows she can say anything to me and we have a healthy discussion. This is, in my opinion, what is lacking when parents come to ban books. No mother wants to talk to their daughter or son about sexual assault. I get it. I don't relish it either. The books get you talking. And I know it's easier to ignore instead. You are doing your kids a huge disservice by avoiding it, rather than buying the books and sitting down for a frank conversation, a heartfelt discussion. The best part of free will is you don't have to do that. But do not take that from other parents who do not agree. Books are the gateway. Do you really think you're shielding your kids from reality? You can't. It really does not work that way. Teenagers are trying to find their way in the world, and they need as many assenting viewpoints as humanly possible. You cannot and should not limit their information because it makes you uncomfortable. They don't need you to lead them. They need you to stand behind them to help them when they need it, not when you think they need it. This is a huge, huge part about growing up. And you're not allowing them to do it. So maybe it's time to change your thinking just a little bit. So I do what I always do. I took this to Facebook and Bookstagram to see what other people felt about the idea of books being banned. I think it's up to the parents to decide what their kids can and cannot take based on their children's maturity. And I think that's a really fair assessment from this reader. You know your child best. I remember my mum reading my books before I could, if she wasn't sure, and then she'd tell me if it was a read-at-home book, which meant she preferred me to read it where I could ask questions if I needed, or a take-to-school book, meaning it was school safe. Yeah, that mum probably did the right thing. for you because at least she understood what you were reading and she didn't try and stop you from reading it. So, yeah, that's a really good way of approaching that. This person said, I think it's up to parents to decide what their kids can and cannot take based on their child's maturity. We already heard that one. No, I think some things need context and education, but no book should be banned. Many books need to be taught or put into context. Even I listen to podcasts to help understand some novels better, and I'm 34. You know what? But that means that you're still willing to learn. You still feel like you have a way to grow. That's awesome. This person said, I think it's up to the parents. I do think an age suggestion like movie ratings would help, especially for parents who don't read or for like gifting purposes. It may make more pause to ask and or look into their contents and if it's truly appropriate. Yeah, maybe, but if you're buying a book for somebody you don't know the reader, like that can still not make it particularly easy, especially if the reader tends to read higher level books. I don't think books should be banned. I feel that if you are worried about the content of a book, then research it before reading. And if it's something not for you or your kids, then move on from it. Don't read it. Everyone's taste is different. Yeah, that's completely valid. Completely valid. I don't think books should be banned. I do think they should have age ratings, though. It can still be up to the parents' discretion like movies are. But someone who is not an avid reader might think something like Icebreaker is young adult, for example. And I already discussed this. Icebreaker technically is a young adult novel based on the criteria. It still met it. Just because you don't think young adult is done correctly, that's on you. No books should be banned. There are books that require education and a hard conversation, like books with racism, genocide, etc., mentioned in them. There are also places where certain books aren't appropriate to be read, for example, in schools and at work, like not safe for work. For example, as someone who works in the education sector, I've had to have a conversation with a student about how it is inappropriate to read certain books, or in one case, fan fiction in class, and it is something to do on their own time. Yeah, okay. I get that. I can kind of agree with that, I guess. I agree with everyone who states that what children read is up to the parents. I was reading B.C. Andrews, Victoria Hall, and anything else I wanted at 9, 10 because I was a mature reader. But I would never give one of those books to my sibling who is 14 because I don't think they're ready for them. Yeah, see? Maturity. Readiness. Yeah. Books shouldn't be banned. If some parents want to censor that for their kids to read, that's their prerogative. Even if I don't personally understand it, they can ban books in their own homes. They do not need to ban them for everybody else. Yeah, and I think that's completely valid. And that's what's happening right now is a lot of parents believe that if their child shouldn't be reading it, no one's child should be. And that's really not up to them to make that decision. They're not their kids. They can mind their business. I was in the center of a book ban at my local high school in grade 9. It was a book about Native Americans and scalping, raping, and much more crazy stuff. And I was talking to my friend about it when I went into details on it. And my teacher snatched the book out of my hand. It led to a whole PTA meeting. It was wild. In grade 9, I was like, wow, you're blowing this into something it shouldn't be. But looking on it now, I'm like, I wouldn't want my child picking a book like that up at school until they can understand more. Yeah, but could you imagine now? Like you felt that you were ready for that book. Now you're saying that a kid the same age wouldn't be? That's a little oxymoronic for me, but moving on. So yeah, it should be age limits on the books. They have it in schools and ages on books kids can pick up, but you'll run into the problem that some kids read at higher levels. So I always feel like it's a win-loss situation here. Yeah, you're not wrong. Because more often than not, books that tend to be geared towards older readers for a more experienced reader is going to have a more mature content. So yeah, unless they're going to start writing new books. Maybe that's an option. I think some books should have age ratings. However, I know it would be slightly hard to implement that. Also, I don't really see any books that should have a full-blown ban. Everyone has their preferences, you know. Yeah, I do know. I do know that. And everyone has the right to decide for themselves what they can, can't, or are mature enough to read. And that's a really sad state of affairs when people think that they can get involved in our choices. No, books with appropriate age rating should be available to all those within age limits. And if you don't want your kid reading them, it's your responsibility to ensure they don't. Just like it's not Jif's responsibility to go out of business because your kid has a peanut allergy. This was a really interesting analogy. No one's going to die from a book. A peanut bar might just, it was, yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting comment. Age ratings could be fine, but never, ever, ever ban books. We've seen that film before, and I didn't like the ending. All right. There needs to be proper age ranges and categories because some that are promoted as young adult are definitely not young adult, and are adult only. Trigger warnings, etc., need to be available. No book should be banned because it's freedom of speech. If you don't like it, don't read it. Simple as that. It's like movies or music. If you don't like it, you don't watch or listen. You simply go with what you like. The problem here is that this person clearly doesn't know that these books are categorized correctly, but they don't feel the reader is old enough for it. So really, they are limiting what they think a teen can handle. I wonder if they have kids of their own and they clearly don't understand the dynamics of what a young adult book really is. This person says there should be age ratings and certain books shouldn't be allowed at school. They clearly do think books should be banned. They do. That's exactly what that person just said. That is a ban. There's no other word for it. That's a ban. This person says absolutely not to ban books. Free speech is important. I'm not entirely opposed to age ratings, but I do think parents should pay more attention to the media their children consume, including YouTube videos, Reddit, social media, etc. I think children having unlimited access to the internet is generally a pretty bad idea. This person's not wrong. Like, come on. Books bad, internet good. That doesn't make any sense. Banned books as a term is typically a sales term in the US, so I tend not to get too rolled up about it. I would like as many books as possible to be available at my library, but sometimes I need to request an interlibrary loan from the next big city, or I just buy it. So this person's not getting caught up in all the propaganda and fanfare that's going on with this topic right now. She's like, meh, I'll just buy it if I want it. See? No problemo. This person says no bans, period. Simple, to the point. Book bannings from like stores, never. Should adult smut be in an elementary, middle school, or even high school library? I don't feel like that's appropriate. But if they are, or their parents buy it, then whatever. So kind of both, but mostly anti-book banning. You see what I mean about like the conceptions here that some people are on the fence? I think certain books shouldn't be allowed in the school system, but full-on banning a book from anyone is a no for me. I say just give books a rating like movies, make it more simple for people. This is why there's trigger pages. Yeah, exactly. There are trigger pages. They're right at the front. Book banning and removing age-inappropriate books from school libraries isn't the same thing in my opinion. Books should have a rating system like movies do, but unfortunately they don't. No book should ever be banned, but 8th graders don't need to be reading A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I can't, okay? I'm not even going to cover that. Absolutely not to book banning. Age ratings I don't feel are necessary. Books are already in categories for a reason. No, there aren't any. Books I don't agree with, I just don't read them. Yeah, so she doesn't like a book or she just doesn't read it. Look at that. How smart is she? This person says yes to age ratings, then it's up to parents if they want to implement or not. However, banned? Not really. Everyone has their triggers, their likes. Nobody should forbid someone of reading a book. Yeah, pretty much what I've been saying. Book banning is not something I particularly agree with. I do believe that no one should force themselves to read a book they do not enjoy. But to ban a book is basically saying the ideas inside the book doesn't conform enough with how whoever bans it thinks yes. Most of the reasoning behind banning is weak at best with you. I do believe parents have the right to decide what books are okay for their children. I also believe that once someone is an adult, they have the right to not listen to other people telling them what not to read. Yeah, exactly. Like, I really think that that's the crux of it right there. Like, parents should have the ultimate say on what their own child has access to. Absolutely. No book should ever be banned. If you don't want your child to read a book, you have the right to stop your child from reading that book. But to completely ban a book because of personal opinion is absolutely wrong. Nail head. Books do have age ratings, or at least recommended ages. Yes, they are. They're recommended. They're not enforced. It's just a guideline. Young adult, teen, middle grade, early readers, all have age ranges that are based on the average reading level and maturity of the kids within that range. And if you go to bookstores like Chapters, They'll be broken up in those sections, and you have the recommended ages posted, which is really helpful. Young adult is going to have a different content than a middle grade or adult book. Absolutely, but quite often they'll overlap. They'll overlap. And this is what's starting to make people go a little nuts, I think. So there you have it. Most people think they are anti-book banning, but really they aren't. They believe books should be age specific. And banning books from schools is still banning. They have a clear definition that school book banning is not the same thing. Well, unfortunately, they're wrong. You're wrong. So, I will let you have all your delusions, though. I guess now I wonder if books did have a stricter age restriction on them, that parents might not blow things up the way they do. But then again, just because your child can't get a book at school doesn't mean they can't get it from their library. There are no age restrictions on buying books either. So is that something that these book banning parents want then? Age restrictions, you have to show ID to pick up an adult book? So where do you stand on book banning now that you understand the meaning of it a little better? Do you support schools removing materials that isn't age appropriate? Or do you believe it's up to a parent to decide what their kids do and don't read? I'll let you decide. I hope you enjoyed this episode of my podcast, and follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X. You can find me in all the linky places. You can buy me a cup of coffee and I will give you a shout out in my next episode. Hasn't happened yet, but these haven't aired yet, so hopefully maybe next week. This is Stacey Wright signing off, and this was The Right Kind of Book Talk. I hope you have the reading day you deserve. Take care for now.